Hey everyone, welcome back to Dan91's garage. In this episode, I've got a Glanza cam cover that needs a bit of a clean up. So we're going to strip the baffle off it, clean behind, and see how far we get with the reassembly. No point messing about, I'll see you in a sec. When you end up putting some boost in the engine, you're going to end up with probably a bit more blow-by on the pistons, and the crankcase needs to breathe a bit better. So on the original 4EFE1, there's a small sort of breather here as an intake, and then the PCV goes off to the manifold. So that comes down from the intake pipe before the throttle body into here, and then obviously as it's drawing a vacuum constantly, because the 4EFE never sees positive pressure, the PCV valve's only there in case it backfires basically, which, to be honest with you, are probably pretty uncommon on a modern EFI vehicle, well, modern-ish. So yeah, there's always air being drawn in through there. So on the 4EFTE, when it's in vacuum, i.e. no boost, it's obviously drawing air in, and all the vapours and crap and all, it's basically sort of like oil vapours and condensation, water vapours get sort of trapped in the top of the cover behind the baffles. And under vacuum, that's obviously drawn into the intake manifold and then burnt up during the combustion process. This valve, obviously, when the boost comes, it obviously shuts this valve here, so therefore nothing can blow in and pressurise the crankcase, because that would be bad. And then essentially the vapours collect in here, and then the vacuum that the turbo is drawing on the intake, turbo intake pipe, it should be great enough to draw those out. And obviously if this is blocked up, it's going to be then drawing the vapours out and creating a vacuum inside the crankcase. And obviously under vacuum, when there's no boost could be being created, so under vacuum obviously it's drawing the vacuum through here, and then it's drawing air in through this pipe. So it goes in through this pipe and out through there under vacuum, and under boost this blocks off, and then it's drawn out through here into the turbo intake pipe. So that's roughly how that works. Obviously some people just put a filter on there to let it breathe out or breathe in or do whatever it's going to do, and leave this connected. Some people put both to a catch can. We'll come on to that later, but either way, I bought this because it's good to help relieve crankcase pressure. So it's got came with the oil cap, which I don't need because I've already got one. Came with a screw to hold the guide clip thing, don't need that, and a PCV. This PCV I don't think is a genuine one because it's too long and it sort of slides up and down, so that's not great. It does work. I have sort of sucked through it and it breathes, and I've blown through it and it blocks off, so that's fine. It does have a part number on it, but like I say, it doesn't look like a genuine one. Plus, the grommet beneath it is supposed to be rubber, and it's so old, it is hard as an absolute rock. And this popping up and down isn't great. The thing is, to replace this, usually when you pull this up, it snaps the head of it off inside the baffles anyway. So that usually means then you have a small piece of plastic plus springs and valves and stuff rattling around inside the cover, which is never good. So I'm going to take that off, and it'll probably break anyway. So we're going to be most likely taking the baffles off this. It appears to have been painted, judging by the silvery colour, and it may well be VHT paint. And in my experience of VHT paint that doesn't cure properly, as soon as you get oil or petrol on it, or brake clean or anything, you can just simply wipe it off. 2-1, no idea what that means. That's fine. So here we go. So that's that side. Obviously when we turn it over, try not to fill everything with wood. So this is the baffle system on the other side. Like I say, these are the spark plug seals. There's tubes that come up from the head where the spark plugs sit, and these seal around it. This is the top seal for those. Yeah, that one's totally toast, so I'm going to have to replace all of those anyway. This is obviously the baffle system, so these are the areas where vapours are drawn in from sort of either into this port or this port, and they go out of their respective holes depending on where that is basically. So yeah, it either draws the vapours up through this one, goes to the PCV, and this one here goes round to this area here. So there we go. And this is sort of like a secondary baffle on the inside. It's like a little drip tray. Essentially underneath this, there's a hole here and a hole here and a hole here on this particular plate. And as the oil vapours get drawn up and condensed, there's like a baffle here. You can see it spot welded on. There's a baffle on the other side. It's just like a fence with a series of holes through it. As that gets drawn through, slows it down, vapours condense and all that exciting stuff. The oil itself then drips through that onto this plate, and then from this plate it sort of drips out sideways and then back into the engine. So there's no real way, apart from this one hole, that oil can splash directly up into the baffle. These holes here have a stud going through them to actually bolt the thing down through the top. So they have a stud going through them. So it's unlikely that a lot of oil is going to splash into those holes anyway. So that's basically it. But while I've been looking at it, I have noticed there's some sort of grainy residue in here. I've taken some photos of it, which I'll put up now. And there's some stuff down in the corner. I doubt you'll be able to pick it up on the GoPro, but I've fished a bit of it out, and I was thinking it was perhaps carbon build-up and stuff, but I've taken it out and tried to crush it, sort of between two hard objects, and it doesn't really want to crush. So the worry is that when this was painted, someone decided to sandblast it. Now, if they sandblast it, obviously it takes all the crap off the outside, but also sprays a whole bunch of sanding media or blasting media, not that hole, blasting media through the holes, gets behind the baffle, and no matter how you try and get it out, whether you wash it or sort of degrease it, vacuum it, whatever you do, there's no real way of it getting out of the baffles. It will just be in there, and if it's in there at some point, it's going to wash through or get drawn into your engine and cause damage to it. Like I say, the guy I bought this off, he's a lovely guy. Don't think it's anything to do with him, but it could have been the previous owner before that, or the guy in Japan who did it originally, for all we know. So either way, I found enough sort of scary, grainy stuff in here that I wouldn't want in my engine. So I want to have a look behind the baffles. I mean, it is quite a clean cover anyway. But yeah, take this off, that'll probably break. As suspected, that's the top half of the PCV off. That cracked quite easily. And now inside we've got a little valve and a spring. Obviously it will let air out and then blocks it under boost. So yeah, that's toast. And as we can see, the paint is wiping off it just with some brake cleaner. It's not coming off as easily as some of the ones I've played with before, but just rubbing it there, you can see the paint's just literally dissolving off it. So out come the old spark plug tube gaskets. And then, using a step drill as a centre drill, I put some pilot spots on top of the rivet heads. So I've drilled off most of the heads of the rivets, and quite a few of them popped off. Managed to get through this one, pop off the centre baffle, so that's cool. So that's the little baffle, and those are the holes I told you about earlier. Those three there, the oil drips through obviously from this tray onto the little sort of channels on this, and then out into the engine. So that's how some of the oil gets back in, so that's come off quite nicely. Drilled the head off with, sort of started off with the 4mm bit, just to sort of make some sort of centre mark, and then carried on with an 8mm, which seems to take most of this away. From memory, the shafts of these are about 6mm. Ground off what remained of the heads, and then managed to pop it off without really too much damage. I've sort of scribbled on it a couple of times with the die grinder, but that's not going to make any difference. There's no serious damage to it, so that's now off, which is good. This is obviously the card or sort of paper gasket, and it's obviously completely toast. This isn't supposed to be serviced or taken apart really, so you obviously can't buy the gasket, but we just replace that with some instant gasket basically. There are a few bits and pieces in here, nothing too serious though, thankfully. It's 10 times cleaner than my my previous one, but you've got, once you start, you've got to know kind of thing. This set, so far I've pulled about 2 or 3 bits out of here that I wouldn't have liked to have gone in the engine. So at the end of the day, I mean, even one piece it's worth saving it from, right? Because I mean, if that goes through your engine, that's not going to do it much good. So then the next job is to obviously remove all of these little sort of remaining posts, so it's then flat down to this level, and then clean up. You can see how much oil residue and sludge goes up the PCV path versus the other path that goes to the turbo intake pipe. So that's the turbo intake pipe one there. That's the arse end of the PCV valve. It's so hard, the grommet, I'm basically just going to drill the head off this because there's no way that was coming out. As soon as that broke off, we had to take the baffles off anyway, in my opinion, let alone the fact that I did see a couple of bits of shrapnel there. So yep, we're already well into it now, so I'll carry on doing this tidy up. As you can see, this cardboard gasket is absolutely wrecked. So yeah, I'll carry on tidying this stuff up and then it'll be off to clean it. So from a complete cover this morning that was potentially a bit grotty on the inside and had a broken PCV, we're now at this point. So cleaned up the baffles, just used a bit of well, these are sort of white Scotch-Brite pads. They're not actually abrasive, they don't have any sanding material in them. They're just like basically a scouring pad. They're only plastic stuff, so they're more for cleaning rather than abrading, it said. So I used those with some brake cleaner just to clean up these, and it's taken the worst of the grease, oil and varnish off of them, so I'm fine with that. Like I say, the baffle's off. It had quite a nasty sort of burr right around the outside of it, and it's been plated, so I didn't really want to sand off too much of it, but I just took the sharp edge off of it so it doesn't end up injuring yourself while you're playing with it. You should always deburr your work, and yeah, this was punched out of a piece of tin and left some horrible burrs on it, sort of thing. So, but yeah, that's off. These are obviously the actual baffle plates. Like I say, they're just like a little vertical fence with some holes in them. So it's as apart as it needs to be, and it's as cleaned up as it's going to get for the time being. I obviously do have to take the paint off the other side, but I'll probably wait until I've actually drilled and tapped these holes. So drew through the holes in the baffle and centre punched them. So now we've got some centre marks to work from. The central ones in this row of 4 here are going to be quite easy to drill because that's drilled straight down. And the back of the cover has a sort of flat edge here. The problem with drilling these side ones is when you try and drill them with the pillar drill, it does want to rock. So last time I had to clamp it down to a workmate to stop that happening, just drill it with a pistol drill by eye. We'll start drilling on the pillar drill. Oh, you've seen me drill plenty of things, so I'll probably do it all off camera, and then I'll show you later when it's all drilled out. Well, I've drilled all the holes now, and so ran out of luck a bit on this hole, and unfortunately I did pump that one straight through, but like I say, I leaned a bit too hard on the drill and through it went. Should have used some sort of stop on it really, rather than just a piece of tape to sort of set the depth essentially. But you live and learn, so only one of them though. I managed to get the other 13 done okay, so that's pretty cool. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm drilling that at sort of 11 mil on the actual sort of shank of it, not including the tip, because obviously I can't thread down to where the tip is, so it's got 11 mil there, and unfortunately I managed to send it through on that one, but by the time it's tapped and got a screw put in it with some thread lock on it, it's not going to leak anyway. It's just going to look a bit dumb, but anyway, it is what it is. It could have been worse. I could have done all of them like that, so thankfully I only did the one. So we've got an M6x1 tap in a small tap handle basically. Aluminium's quite easy to thread, doesn't require a lot of effort, so that's fine. This is a plug tap, which is the second tap. Because of the shallow depth of the holes, I don't think the full-on taper tap is going to really cut many threads before it bottoms out. So we'll start with this one, get maybe 3 or 4 turns of it in, then use a bottoming tap to send it right to the bottom. I'm only using 8mm long screws or 10mm long screws at maximum when we bolt it back on. So yeah, we'll start off with this one. Use some heavy grease and obviously get it in all of the flutes on the side of it. So this is obviously a straight flute one, and that obviously helps collect the chips that occur. Obviously when you turn it in, get it so you get 1 turn in and then half a turn back to help clear your chips, then 1 turn in, then half a turn back. Keep going like that till you're bored out of your mind, and then at the end of it you might have some threads. So that's basically what we're going to do now. So that's all done now. Tapped all the holes. Obviously had to do it twice. Once with the plug tap, which is the second sort of tap of the 3 you can buy. So you obviously get a set of 3 taps. The first one's a taper tap, which has a very serious sort of taper on the end of it, where quite a few of the threads are ground to a cone shape, so it's easier to get it started, and it sort of helps you sort of centre it in the hole. The second one has a few less that are ground down, and the final one just has the tip ground off, and possibly the just the first thread is ground to a little bit of a, like I say, a little bit of a taper. So I started off with the plug tap, which got a good 2 or 3 threads into it. Then once I'd done that, took it out and then chased all the holes through again with the bottoming tap. So that's put the threads right to the bottom of the holes now. So I need to clean this out, test fit the baffle, make sure I can get it in there, make sure the screws are okay as well, because if the screws bottom out in here before they clamp the plate down, I'll have to shorten the screw up a bit because I can't make these any deeper now. I've gone as far as I dare, plus now I've tapped them. If I measured them all beforehand, they were all 11mm at minimum. Yep, that's pretty good. Clean this stuff out, and then it's on to the paint stripping, which will probably be done tomorrow at this rate. So I'll strip all the paint off with some pretty horrid chemicals, and then it'll be ready for assembly when the spark plug gaskets get here. Just test fitting the baffle basically with the chosen screw. I've gone with M6x8 button socket heads. So obviously the head of it looks like a button and the fitting is a socket, so it's a hexagon socket. So on an M6 socket cap head, for example, which is obviously a different shape, the head's a bit deeper. These are a nice low profile head, so that'll help with clearances. And by the time these are screwed down, they're no taller than the sort of pockets of this baffle, or the pressings that are already in the baffle. Considering I did it all by eye with a pistol drill, sort of clamped to a vise, I don't think I did too badly, considering there's still actually movement there and none of them are really locked out against each other. This one here is a bit tight. I can get the screw in, and once the screw's in and almost nipped up, I can still slide the plate around, so it's not really binding on it. But I think I'll just tickle it with the Dremel a little bit just to ease it, because obviously when I put thread lock on the thread lock on the fasteners, when you're winding it in, if the thread's sort of cutting itself against this plate, that can sort of scrape off some of the thread lock. So just going to tickle that out a little bit, and that will ease that off. So that's it. Hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching. My name's Dan. This is Dan91's Garage. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode.